Hi, it's Steve, and I am here once again with Frank Dew. Hello, Frank Dew.
Hi, Steve. How are you today?
I am very good. As everybody knows, you are a business consultant and coach, and with expertise that is specialized in a few different areas to help business owners and also to help people in their ordinary lives. We have been talking about emotional intelligence, which I think our audience knows is a very hot topic. It's kind of broadened people's idea about what is intelligence. And with your expertise, we're going to be able to pinpoint how it applies to, let's say, entrepreneurs. We've covered a few bases so far, and today we're going to cover how our internal motivators generate our emotions, which sounds kind of complicated, but I'm sure you're going to kind of bring it down to earth. So let's start by asking you, what is an internal motivator?
Well, that's a great question. And so there's really two main types to simplify it. Not that we're going to run a psychology program here today, but the two types are intrinsic and extrinsic. And so just as they sound, intrinsically, why do you do something? Do you do something for the motivation just to have purpose, to have, your intrinsic value? It makes you feel good about yourself, and you're doing it for your reasons for that. In terms of independence, that your efforts matter, it gives you autonomy, independence, that sort of thing, versus external or extrinsic motivators. So I'll give a perfect example. I want to do a great job. And so, just the job in itself gives me the intrinsic motivation to do so. And the extrinsic is maybe somebody pays me for that job, maybe get a bonus for that job. And so, what is your motivator in terms of the different things that you do? And so, as you know, definitely in the insurance business, when the extrinsic motivators, and mainly money, for an example, if I sell this, I'll make this commission, then that sometimes leads us into trouble because we end up doing things specifically for external rewards, and we do things to avoid external issues, problems. And so, whereas on the intrinsic side of things, and we're more aware of why we do things because it makes us feel good about doing a job well done, for example. And so, what gets complicated sometimes is a lot of times we do things, especially as entrepreneurs. Let's just say that you're an electrician, you love being an electrician, and it really, the process of setting up a new home construction and having it all work out just well, very professionally, gives you a lot of intrinsic value there, and you get paid for it. And so the extrinsic part is getting paid for it. And so to be aware of the two and to balance the two is the challenge.
I get that. Your point that I understood was that it's the internal motivators that generate the emotions. Is that really true, or you're talking about balance now? So doesn't that mean that the external motivators would also generate emotions?
Yes, yes. My apologies. Both of them do. Yeah.
Both of them do. Um, and so both are of equal value. Okay, and do they generate different emotions in us? Or
Yeah.
can you have an internal motivator that generates an emotion in you, and for me, the same emotion would be generated by an external motivator?
Yes, it's just the emotion itself can be generated from both sides. So let's say an emotion is happy, just a very basic emotion, whatever happy means to each person. And so, I've done a great job, and it makes me feel happy that I've done it well. and I've done a great job, and you've told me that I've done a good job, and so now I'm happy. And so uh, doing that job gave me both intrinsic and extrinsic uh, praise within myself and from outside. And so that generates emotions when we get that.
Hmm. Would you say it's true that we have more control over our internal motivators as opposed to our external motivators?
No question.
Okay, so if that's the case, wouldn't we rather, shouldn't we pay more attention to what the internal motivators are? Because those are the ones that we have more control over and we can work with.
Yeah, and so even on our last session when we talked about increasing your self-awareness, that has a lot to do with recognizing what internal motivators you have. And so when you're more aware of that you have a particular emotion and where it came from. And we talked last time that every emotion comes from a thought. If the thought is an automatic thought or a very chosen thought, it's a thought first, and then the emotion happens after that. A feeling happens after the thought. And so, but to that end, also to an extent, the extrinsic, it's how we relate to that thought, how we're aware of the emotion that comes from praise, for an example. So I've done a great job. And we learned this early on, right? So you're in school, you're in grade 6, and you get an A+, you come home, your teacher told you you did a great job, and your parents told you you did a great job. And so that makes you feel good about yourself. And so alternatively, with so does that then drive your motivation to do better for those people? Or did you feel good about doing well on that test yourself? And is your motivation now, I want to continue to feel good about doing a good job on tests, and regardless of the mark I get, I know I put my best into it? Or do I equate all my value from the extrinsic side of things, and everything that I do is just needs to be praised? And so being aware of the difference is important. It does start with you and how you see it yourself, but we get a lot of extrinsic indicators from people all through our lives. And when it comes to even a great example is, I was talking to a client this afternoon, and she has an elderly mother who's in the nursing home. And she'll go to the nursing home and do some nice things for her mother. She does those things because it makes her feel good to know that her mother's being well taken care of, and that she's done what is aligned with her values to make sure that that's happening. That said, sometimes there's people in that nursing home that tell her that she's not there often enough, and she's found that the motivation for that is, if she was there more often, there's less work for them to do. So you have to be careful what the external motivators are from others.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I'm leaning towards placing less and less value on the external motivators. You originally, again, started out saying there's got to be a balance, but it seems to me that from a personal growth standpoint, any external motivators would really just be icing on the cake, and that the real reward should be self-generated. So, for example, if you feel good about yourself because your boss or because even your client says, "Great job, thank you," that's good, but you should be able to feel good about yourself even if you don't get the praise, right?
That's true. And when we started this whole series on emotional intelligence, part of the emotional intelligence is that everybody has emotions. How aware we are of those emotions helps indicate our level of emotional intelligence, and also how able we are to be aware of what other people's emotions are. And then the third part of that is how we can communicate that. And so when you go through that process, no person is an island. So when we're aware of the communication we give to others in terms of being emotionally aware of how that's going to make them feel, that will increase your emotional intelligence in your communication style. And then also how other people tell you, give you praise or reprimand you, is also a heightened awareness of your own emotional intelligence. And then, so let's say that you said, great job, Frank, here's a bonus of $100 because you did such a wonderful job. My awareness of the fact that I did that job so wonderfully was that I really truly wanted to. And you're now giving me praise for that. So I'm thankful. And so, but I can also communicate back to you that I appreciate that. And I did it because I wanted to do a good job.
What do you find in the entrepreneur community, the people who are funding and founding businesses? Do you find they come across the spectrum of internal and external, or do they lean in more to one side or the other?
That's a great question. There's a real mixed bag there, but one of the things that I find that happens is when people have experienced a lot of different opportunity to look within themselves and increase their own self-awareness, uh, they tend to be more on the intrinsic value than they are on the extrinsic.
Yeah, I mean, people I know, entrepreneurs I know, build a better mousetrap, declare your independence. One guy told me I'd rather have the pressure of being self-employed than the stress of working for a bozo. I say, there's a lot of bad bosses out there, and they don't appreciate your talent, and they hold you back, and they're mediocre, so they want you to be mediocre. So all these are like internal things. Yeah, I would say that they lean towards that direction. So I've just identified a couple of internal motivators. What would you say are the top five of the internal motivators of entrepreneurs?
Independence is probably number one. Independence, you can break it down differently. Independence of time, independence of relationships, independence of money, and potentially using all those three as independence of an opportunity to have better health. And so, just different versions of independence would be a big part of it, and having the autonomy to create something that meant something to them. And so, a lot of entrepreneurs, I find, why would I spend a whole lot of time growing your business when I don't even really agree with how it all runs? Why don't I just grow my own and do it the way I want to do it, even if I make mistakes? And so having that autonomy is I would say number one or two right into independence. And they're closely related, but still different. And then the other opportunity is the mastery. And so the better and better you get at doing something because you really truly want to do it for your reasons, then it gives you that opportunity to practice and to master that.
So those are the big three: independence, autonomy, and mastery.
Yes, yeah.
Hmm. It sounds to me then that it would be relatively easy for entrepreneurs to form partnerships with other entrepreneurs if they share those top three motivators.
Totally. Assuming that, and this is a little bit off, the internal motivators and how they generate our emotions, but they're connected because we're complex creatures. And so one of the connectivities is, are you an entrepreneur that has an abundance mindset, or do you have a scarcity mindset? Is the world a pie? And if Steve gets a piece of the pie, that's one less piece of pie for me. Or can we just make more pies? And so that really determines if entrepreneurs can collaborate or not, even within the same industry.
So if one has a scarcity mindset and the other has an abundance mindset, they're never going to agree on anything.
likely.
So are we heading into the area of how mindset affects motivators, or do you're saying motivators generate emotions, and does mindset generate motivators, or is it not direct
Yes.
like that?
Yeah, no, there is a direct link, no question. Yeah. And so uh, the mindset being internal, like why am I doing this from the motivational standpoint? Am I doing this for my own intrinsic value because I believe in it and I want to do a good job because of what value that brings to me? And so therefore, do I have a mindset of collaboration, or do I have a mindset that the only way I can do that if I just do it within my own realm and not share that with anybody else. And so it's important to recognize the difference.
So somebody that has a scarcity mindset might be like, it's every man for himself. There's limited resources. I can't trust you. I got to make sure I get mine. But somebody has an abundance mindset. It might be like, all right, well, there's enough here for everybody. We can afford to work together. I can afford to help you. You're gonna afford to help me. Does that sound
Exactly.
about right?
Yes.
That's very interesting.
There tends to be, I'll just add, there tends to be, and it's not absolute, but there tends to be a direction, a leaning that when you find an entrepreneur that does have that autonomy and purpose and freedom and independence, they've mastered what they do, then they tend to realize that there's a limitation behind the scarcity. And if they truly want to fulfill that independence and mastery, then they need to open to the abundance to allow other people to come in and collaborate to get that much more value out of what their intrinsic motivators were in the first place.
Why does that increase the value by collaborating?
It's a multiplier.
It's kind of like a two heads are better than one type idea you're talking about?
Exactly.
Okay. They call it like a
So,
hive thing, like a hive, a mind hive.
yeah, like I mean, even if you look at it from a sports direction, right? So you're the star quarterback without you know humongous guys in front of you blocking you, you're gonna get killed. And without really fast guys that can jump high and catch balls, you're not going to be able to throw it to anybody. And so you need that team to really move to the next level.
I get that. Okay. This is really interesting. I think you provided us with a really nice schematic of motivators and the two families of motivators and how they relate to emotions and also how mindset relates to the motivators. That's really good. And you've applied it especially to the entrepreneur community for them to recognize things about themselves and become more emotionally intelligent. Are there any last comments or points you'd like to make in this
I
regard?
guess really uh, business is so much about people. And no, like I said, no person is an island. So if you're an entrepreneur and you have clients, and you're an entrepreneur and you have a team, either direct or indirect, some contractors or direct employees, um, then you're dealing with people. And so if you can have a heightened awareness of what does motivate you to do what you do, and have a heightened awareness of how you communicate those motivations, and be also very aware of how the people around you are reacting or not reacting to the environment around them and what you have the effect on. That will increase your connectivity to them, and as a result will increase the amount of business that you do.
And you're just the guy to show them the way.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, Frank, dude, once again, you have educated us. I thank you so much, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve, for having me.
You're welcome.